Hey everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. I just want to say thank you to everyone who gave me birthday wishes and everything else. Today, I really want to be talking about how do you sort of mentally prepare to shift from employee to self-employed, okay? How do you go from, again, this whole sort of employee mindset to a more self-employed mindset? And for me, the best way to sort of describe this is really to talk about my consulting and contracting journey. Now, just to be very clear and transparent, for those of you in the UK, you may be familiar with outside of IR35 and inside of IR35. Inside of IR35 means that you're contracting, but essentially you're taxed like an employee. Okay, you're taxed the same way. When it comes to outside of IR35, you're taxed based on your business, based on your limited company. And so for me, the distinction is that an independent consultant is an individual who is outside of IR35 and or getting contracts directly from, let's say, the government, the public sector, the private sector, SMEs, etc., etc. Whereas the inside IR35 contractor is different. They're working under an umbrella company who processes their management and fees and all that kind of stuff there. So for me, I started this journey, I would say back in 2020 when I was working for the digital element of the NHS. I was a senior implementation manager, and essentially I was dealing with a national program, the Digital Child Health Program, which I had niche expertise in because I had dealt with this same project within London. Okay, London was the first to pilot it back in 2016, I want to say. And so there was no one else like me who could do this thing. There were other people who knew about it, but didn't know what I knew. And so I got brought in on a national level and was dealing with this huge transition. And essentially, it was moving different child health record departments into more digital savvy things. Okay, so it was moving the data from paper based to digital based. So there was millions, if not billions, of different pieces of data that needed to be transferred. Now, this took a lot of time, energy, expertise, X, Y, and Z. And essentially, even though I was making headway, I had some issues with some of the leadership. Okay. And the challenge meant that it started sort of like pushing in my brain this narrative of, I need to not be here no more. And I felt almost like in a position where I couldn't do anything. Okay. When you start feeling like you don't belong anymore, you start to lose confidence and all this kind of stuff there. Yes, competence defines confidence in many different ways. But in other elements, people sort of like affect your confidence based on how they speak to you. So I was going back and forth with this individual. It just wasn't working out. Now, previously before, I was, developing my coaching offers and coaching people on the side and all this kind of stuff. But in addition, I had contracting in mind. I've always had contracting in mind, but I never really pursued it. I remember asking one girl one time, I was like, how did you get into the contracting industry? She just ignored me, completely ignored me. So with that in mind, I stopped entertaining that and was just focusing on the coaching aspect. Now, of course, as things started to progress, I started to get burnt out. I was becoming very lethargic. Like there was just a loss of energy. And so it came to December 2020. I was on a meeting, and in that meeting, I started to feel that something wasn't quite right, and I blacked out. Blacked out on that call. I was on a Google Meet call with everyone on there. And so that wasn't good. And I think when I went to the doctor, it was the first time that the GP was like, yeah, you've actually got clinical stress, if you want to call it that. And I was like to myself, this has never happened. This has never happened to me. Like me stress, like me, a whole me. But yeah, it could happen to anyone. And so it was during those moments where I got my sick leave, okay, for a month. I was written off for a month, where I started to think to myself, can I keep on doing this? And I know there are some of you who are watching this who are in a very similar situation or close to similar situation where you're like, can I keep on doing this? Now, back then, we didn't have COVID, even though COVID was looming 3 months later or just beginning in Wuhan, China, potentially. We didn't have any of that stuff. And some of you may be at home, some of you may not have been at home or may not be at home. But the point being made is that you're feeling this way. The very thought of going to work makes you feel sick. And so with that in mind, what do you do? Well, what did I do? With that month sick leave off, I did a number of things. The first thing I did was I reached out to somebody who was contracting within the space. Now, because what I was dealing with was tech, and didn't know it was health tech back then, although it was part of the NHS, I spoke to this contractor, a really good friend of mine now, and I was like, it'd be great to learn how you got into the contracting space. Now, I felt very awkward asking this person, but because we had developed a good relationship, they were like, yes, certainly. And my face just lit up, and she was just like, this, that, X, Y, and Z. Bam, she introduced me to 4 different recruiters. Only one got back, well, 2 got back to me. One was unserious, one was very serious. And they laid it out for me. This agent laid it out for me, but it was only because of the help and the leg up from this lady. This is why I do my YouTube videos. I'm literally sharing everything that I've learned and what other people have told me in terms of this space. And so I spoke to this lady, to this agent, and you know, it was a great conversation. She was telling me what was on the market, what the market was like, and yeah, my skills would be great. And just so you know, my skills at the time were all centered around, I would say, project management, but I had a lot of commissioning experience, a lot of performance management experience, a lot of implementation experience. I just qualified for my change management and also for my, I believe it was MSP, managing successful programs. And also, I just finished my coaching qualification, but it was all fresh. And I didn't really know I was in that project management space like that. You know, when you know you got the skills, but you didn't know you were in it like that. And so the lady was like, yeah, you fit perfectly. We get loads of people like you. However, you're going to have to quit your job if you're going to pursue this. And I was just like, quit my job? Can't I do this on the side? Is there a way that? Nah, there was no way. There was no sort of like alternative that you could do. And so I had to really think about this. Anyway, I spoke to other people. I spoke to an accountant that she introduced me to. So if you guys are interested in an accountant firm, then let me know, and I can send them a message and all of that kind of just there. So just put it in the comments. But essentially, I spoke to this accountant who did the sort of numbers in terms of how much I would make. So let's say, for example, it was £500 a day. Then with that in mind, I knew what I'd make on a 3-month basis, on a 6-month basis, on a 12-month basis. And I was like, this feels pretty good. This is more than what I'm making now. This is at least 2 times what I'm making. Of course, you have to consider taxes and all that kind of stuff there, and they're doing an illustration, but it gave me clarity. What was the next thing I did? I spoke to more contractors, and I spoke to old colleagues that I used to work with who gave me insights in terms of how to apply, such as if you change your CV, you know, well, not change it, but you change something on your profile on a job board every 2 weeks or so, kind of jogs the algorithm and gets attention on your CV. Now, can I confirm that's true? Well, I've done it a number of times and it's worked, but I don't know if it's actually worked because of that reason. But these little things got picked up because I spoke to these individuals. I spoke to these people. And so with that in mind, I sought the counsel of, well, she was my girlfriend at the time. She's my wife now. Praise the Lord. I sought the counsel of my sister, of my mother, a few friends here and there, just to really understand if what I wanted to do made sense. And sometimes what you want to do doesn't make sense in reality. It just doesn't make sense. But you just have to kind of run with it. And what I failed to say, and I've said this in the previous video, that I just had this deep, insatiable feeling to move. Now, I would like to say this was God giving me the sign that I need to move, okay, because it's worked out. But some people may describe it as, well, because you had burnout, and with that burnout, there was a lack of values due to the fact that you had clashes or issues with the current manager or boss that you had, or whatever it may be. It wasn't really the boss, it was the program manager who was a contractor themselves, which was quite interesting. Then that meant that actually the environment I was in didn't make sense. It didn't feel comfortable, etc., etc. Maybe that's what that feeling was. I developed a trauma response to being in that environment. I was working alongside somebody I was working with in my old permanent role, and they were feeling the same thing. We kind of gave each other support. And mind you, she stayed there for a couple of years later until she got her own new role. But it was valid. We supported each other in that space. Why do I say this? I say this all to say that I had all of these different confirmations, and I had help and support from all these different people that mentally got me prepared. So I needed to really understand precisely, if I was going to make this move, what am I going for in the market? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, what do I need to think about as I'm leaving? So I made the decision before I went back to work, which is on the 11th of January 2021, that yeah, I'm leaving. No one's going to persuade me. No one's going to say anything. None of that kind of stuff there. I'm definitely going to go. And so with that in mind, I went back to work and put in a meeting with my manager straight away. Okay. I was cool with this manager. And I could tell they knew something was up. I could, because why am I coming in straight away? Meeting. Like, what's happening? So she's trying to give me all this fluff and trying to direct it. And I just, when you start to feel that feeling of, oh my gosh, if I don't say this now, I'm never going to say it. So I just said, yo, I didn't say yo. I said, I need to talk to you about something. And she's like, yes, what is it? I was like, over this year, I've had a lot of great, invaluable experience that I can take away with me wherever I go. However, I made a decision to leave. I've made a decision to pursue contracting because I believe that it's something that will take me to the next step in my career journey. I didn't say that verbatim, but something to that effect. She just paused. She kind of looked at me as if to say, oh gosh. And then she was like, I knew you were going to say this. And actually, I don't blame you. I was lucky in that regard. Some of you may not be that lucky, before I came to this place, I was held ransom. Ransom. I had this whole thing that happened where the manager back then did not want me to go. And even though I was going, they wanted to delay my departure. And I threatened them and I said, hey, if you do not let me go, this email that you see here, I'm ready to press send to every single person within this organization. So if you want people to know exactly what you guys have been doing and the sort of discrimination that you've been doing X, Y, and Z, I didn't play the race card, but I was just being like, I wrote down loads of facts. They weren't ready for that heat, I'm telling you. So I know it's like when you have to pull every single card to get what you want, because sometimes some organizations and line managers, they want to make it difficult, but this person didn't. They were actually extremely understanding. And in fact, I said to them, look, I know my notice period is 3 months. However, can you keep me on until I'm able to find something? And she said, yes, certainly. So I was blessed in that way. I need to make this stuff clear, because the journey that I talk about and the stuff that I talk about in relation to consulting and contracting will not be the same journey that you have. You will find your way and your approach. And so with that in mind, like, it gave me the freedom to start looking for stuff. So I spoke to that same agent I spoke to their manager. We had a conversation. They asked me questions centered around, okay, what are your skills and expertise? What sort of things are you looking for? Do you have security clearance? All of this stuff that I didn't know the answer to straight away, but I was just blagging. And so obviously that set me up for future conversations. So now when I talk to people, obviously I'm a program management consultant. I'm a program management contractor. I specialize in digital transformation programs that are complex and ambiguous by nature, which means that I help people or organizations and teams create efficiency, save money, and lead better. Okay, that's just a bit of a tagline. It's marketable, whatever it may be. The point being made is I know my thing now. I know my specialist approach. And so this is something you need to think about. You need to think to yourself, what is your specialism? What is the thing that you need to focus on when you are speaking to these recruiters, or you're speaking to different individuals where, they're going to give you the contract, so that you're in a position of strength. I'm telling you, the confidence is key to this game. And so, as I said before, I was doing coaching whilst I was working. I still do coaching now. And currently a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is centered around helping people either in their careers or transition when it comes to their careers. This is why I talk about the whole portfolio career package. I'm not saying you need to do multiple things at once, but what I am saying is, if there are synergies, you get experience here, you get experience there, it all mashes into something that makes sense for you. Because the career path doesn't exist, but you create it. You create what that path looks like. And so this is really important. So the coaching was still happening on the side. Anyway, so I spoke to this agent. They said they were going to look for some stuff for me. They did find me something. It was a program manager role for the local authority. I said, I know what these people are like. I've dealt with them. Had the interview. It was the worst interview ever. And what's crazy about this stuff is that when you're doing these contracts, you might get a day, you may get 2 days, if you're lucky, 3 days before you get into the interview. It's just like, bam. So you need to know your stuff. You need to be prepared. I was not prepared. It was embarrassing. But it was all good because it taught me the lesson and gave me the resilience I needed to move forward. And so that was that. I was like, okay, I need to get over myself. You know, when you, well, I haven't had this in a while, but you know, when somebody has had a breakup, okay, and they just can't get over that person. Nah, that can't happen. It's like when there was a property me and my wife saw, I think it was in 20, it was the same year, I believe, 21 or 22. We really wanted this property, but it was taken by some other couple. Yeah, we were low and down. She was down for a minute, but for me, I was like, yeah, I need to get over this. I know I feel sad, but I need to find the next thing. The next day, I found the place that I'm in right now. The next day. So you have to be able to bounce back. And I did. So there was an opportunity. It was something that the agent found for me again. So agents are important in this space. Sometimes you find the opportunities, and if you find them directly, great, especially if it's for government and public sector, and there's a way to do that. It's a longed out process, but in the meantime, you should do this sort of stuff such as contracting and consulting if this is something that you're interested in independently. Anyway, they found me something. There was no interview required, and I thought, yes, like this is my way in. Now, it was a role known as a relationship and communications lead or something like that. Nothing to do with anything that I've done ever in my life. But I said, I'm going to do the best that I can. Those 2 weeks were nonsense. But it was only until a Deloitte consultant was leaving where I took their place on a different role within a slightly different team where I excelled. And that's where the journey really started. Now, I don't need to get into all of that stuff. That can be another time. But the point I'm making is, you've heard my journey, okay? You've heard my journey. And I want to highlight some stuff. I've written an article on this called Mentally Prepare for Contracting. This is written probably 2 or 3 years ago. But it highlights some of this stuff. So number one, it talks to the fact that you have to be extremely clear about what sort of thing you're diving into, okay? So if you are doing contracting and consulting, there are situations where, yes, there are pros to it, such as you'll make more money over the long term if there's consistency. You can connect with loads of different types of people, which means that there are different types of opportunities abreast. In terms of your career journey and development, that accelerates depending on how much you provide and how you articulate your value. You know, you have the ability to be remote and obviously have the freedom to take leave when you want to, all of this kind of stuff. I say leave, but holidays, all of that kind of stuff there. All depends on the type of contract that is drawn up, whether this is purely inside or outside or more government focused or whatever it may be. There's all these pros, but the cons are sometimes the market is not favorable towards you. Sometimes it means that there may be some stints where you're out of work. The longest stint I've had is 4.5 months. That's happened twice to me. Once was very deliberate and it was fine. The second time wasn't as deliberate because it was the general election. So that happened last year. So you need to be good with your savings. You need to be savvy with this kind of stuff. You also need to be extremely clear about what your superpower is what I'm calling it. So what's your generalist skill or expertise? What's your specialist? If your generalist is, I'm a project manager for the public sector, great. If your specialist is, I'm a program manager for the NHS focusing on ERPs and digital transformations, that's very specialist. There are specific, teams and departments that want your expertise. For the specialist areas, you want that in sort of like thriving times, and in sort of like more general times or more, let's say, hard times, you can talk about the general stuff, okay? So with that in mind, again, I can share the link to this so you can see it for yourself. There's also your CV. Your CV needs to be on point. I've done a whole video on CV, so I don't need to get to it. But the point being made is it needs to be logical. And in your mind, you need to answer it in a way that is marketable. And if you were the hiring manager, you would be like, yeah, I need this person. This is who I need in my life. Okay? So that's what you want to talk about. Again, your CV needs to match to your LinkedIn. But what I'd say with your LinkedIn is that it needs to look presentable. Please do not do this thing where you don't have a profile picture and no header. Even now with the header, you can swipe. You can do this swipe thing where, it's kind of like a slideshow, which is even great. The point I'm making is be presentable. Make sure it's aligned to your CV. Again, I'll put the link below. Speak to the right types of people. You heard my story. Speak to other contractors. So me doing this is me speaking to you. You go back to my videos. I've got plenty of videos talking about this stuff in even more detail, all for free. There are people who are gatekeeping this stuff, and then you see them doing this, and then they do their own businesses and stuff because for whatever reason they didn't want to share that story. I'm sharing that story. Okay, so make sure you speak to other contractors, watch these types of videos. There have been a number of different people popping up with contractor videos these days over the last couple of years, so you can watch their videos too, because my experience isn't the only experience that exists out there. There are other people's experiences as well. Okay, not only speak to other contractors, speak to people within a consulting game, speak to agents, okay, and recruiters, speak to accountants. Again, if you want the details to the accountant, let me know. You can send through your email via LinkedIn, and then we can set it up that way. Speak to old colleagues as well. Sometimes they know it's happening on the grapevine. If you want to, like, if you're not sure to leave yet, sign up to CV Library and set up your CV and your profile as if you're a contractor, so you can start getting recruitment agencies come through to you, so you can start speaking to them on the phone and understand what sort of things they ask. Hey, listen, that's a gem there, you know. I don't think you understand. Like, if you did that, and this is something I did, if you did that, you start to understand how the game works. Many of you speak to recruiters anyway for 9-to-5 jobs, but when it comes to contracting, you need to understand what that looks like, what flavor that feels like, okay? And so once you start getting through these people, you can either start developing relationships with them, tell them your situation, all that kind of stuff there, and they can advise. Because, of course, these people are hungry to make money on the back end of good people. But, of course, they're not going to wait forever for people who are not ready. This is the best time to do it. When I say this time, right now I'm recording this on the 18th of February. Between January and, let's say, March, April, yeah, it's budget time. Especially when it comes to the 1st of April or 5th of April, it's budget time. The spring budgets, companies are getting money, all of this kind of stuff there. Yeah, they're going to be looking for contractors and consultants. People are saying, oh, that contracting and consulting is dying. It's not dying. It's just contracting. It will expand again, but it's contracting at the moment because of the socio-economic and political situations we're in at the moment. Now, it's definitely going to be disrupted due to the innovations of AI, for sure. But my bet is there are going to be more smaller businesses and companies that are required. That's going to become more of the thing. This is why I talk about the portfolio career. There has to be a main thing and other things that align to that main thing that you're doing. That's what makes sense. And that's what most portfolios look like. So do that. You also want to do further checks. So if you are looking to leave, okay, and let's say, for example, it's not contracting, it's a business, then maybe you want to start moving to part-time. Maybe you want to start introducing or socializing the idea that you're doing this stuff to your organization, if that makes sense. You want to look at your notice period and understand the sort of like processes required for notifying your leave. What things do you need to consider when it comes to your benefits and your pension and all of this? Do that groundwork. You need to understand what that looks like. Better yet, from a financial standpoint, and I didn't do this, okay? I'm not saying you should do what I did, but I didn't do this. But I think it would be sensible if you had at least 4 to 6+ months worth of expenses covered in terms of savings. Not 3 months, 4 months. I feel like 3 months, yeah. I feel like it's a 4-month mark. That feels more accurate. That's because it's happened to me. It's happened to other people. Have a minimum of 4 months worth of expenses saved. I'm sitting really weird. Apologies for that. But 6 months is more favorable as well. Okay, so think about all of this kind of stuff. If you don't want to save that stuff and you're looking to take a risk, how else are you going to make money? Are you going to rely on a credit card? Are you going to rely on your overdraft? Are you going to rely on a loan? Are you going to rely on the bank of mom and dad? Are you going to rely on your partner? I mean, if you don't have to do these things, don't do these things. There's no rush. I know some of you feel sick. You just want to vomit at the fact that you are where you are right now. Trust me, I get it. But you also need to think about the midterm, okay? Not just the long term, the midterm. Don't let the short term distract you, because that could really mess you up, and I don't want that for you guys. So if you think it's sensible for you to leave with savings, do that. But if you're already set up and prepared, yeah, just go for it. And make sure you search the market to see if there's demand for the thing that you're jumping into. Okay, so if you're in project management, we're in project management. Rule number 1, when it comes to contracting and consulting, typically the market validation is based on the fact that you've been in an industry or vertical, based on your 9-to-5. In English, I don't know why I said it like that. In English, for me, I was part of healthcare, which is the NHS, which is the public sector. There is a reason why I have consistently got government contracts or public sector contracts, mainly within healthcare. Not all of them, but mainly. It's because of that. So yes, it does leave breadcrumbs. You can pivot, okay? So the roles I had before weren't program manager. However, I did the training and I spoke the language. I articulated it. So really, they understood this guy is a program manager. He just needs the right role. It's that simple. And I knew how to pivot my CV slightly. So hopefully this has given you some insight. It's a lot of talking. I've gone off script because I had some notes before I forget that this is going to be more valuable. This is phase 2 of my journey at the moment, my career journey, my portfolio career journey. Phase 1 was I was part of the sort of like 9 to 5 employee sort of workforce, which is perfectly fine. Phase 2, I needed to taste entrepreneurship. And in order for me to taste entrepreneurship, I wanted to start off with contracting and consulting. That way, it was telling myself, I can bet on me. I can bet on me. I've done this for 4 years now. Is it 4 years? Yes, 4. Yeah, let's just say it's 4 years. I think it's 4 years now. I mean, that's enough to say, yeah, I'm in the game, you know? So phase 3 is where I'm void of any of that stuff and I'm purely, you know, owning some sort of, what's the word? Business that is independent of an end client such as the one that I have. It's different. The portfolio career has expanded and is bigger, badder and bolder. And of course, when you speak to an accountant, you get more ideas, you know, in terms of how you sort of navigate the plane. Anyway, hopefully that has given you some insight. If there are any comments or sort of like ideas that you want to sort of like leave under the video, then please do that below. Again, for anybody who wants help with their CV or LinkedIn or even wants some career coaching, then feel free to check out the links below and follow the process that I have given. And if you want to see more videos centered around, again, portfolio careers, contracting, consulting, leadership resilience, all of that kind of stuff there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.